Well, welcome in, everybody, to the latest edition of our little boxing podcast. Great to have you with us, however you're finding us, whether it is the audio version only via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or the Sports Gambling Podcast and their network of shows and their feed, or if you found us via YouTube and the Big Fight Weekend YouTube page or a social media link for the video. I am your somewhat lucid host. These are my special guests. Let's say hello to senior writer, BigFightWeekend.com, Marquis Johns, back in on the podcast. Week Sauce, how you feeling?
Pretty good, TJ. Fresh up a weekend where boxing, social media, you came together as one, as Dillian Whyte lost. Such a great feeling.
Yeah, Dillian Whyte still doesn't know what day or what time it is. This guy knows what day or time it is. Love me, the Canobbios. Dan Canobbio here. Inside Boxing Live is his podcast. He's a great follow on Twitter if you're a fight fan. Dan Canobbio, fresh off the golf course, is here with us on the Big Fight Weekend podcast. How you feeling there, Mr. Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson?
Oh, no. I am neither of those. I feel a little bit better than Dillian Whyte out on the golf course. Yes, came back, rushed back, took a shower, chat with you on boxing, right, Marquis? This weekend, it finally felt like boxing was back. Like the last couple of weeks, they would have one fight, you'd have a card, the top rank bubble. This weekend, you had from between Sergio Martinez on Friday, Saturday you had boxing in the afternoon, you had two cards at night. It really felt like it was finally back. And you're also right that nothing brings boxing fans together like a common enemy in Dillian Whyte, and also bad judging, which has been a lot of that as well. There are a few things. There are a few things that bring boxing Twitter together as a whole. Bad judging, the wretched commissions, and like the heels that everyone hates. So we're getting back. Nature is healing.
It is good. And yes, and big knockouts too, which we're going to get to and cover here on the podcast. So we've got a lot of different subjects. I want to promote what Dan is up to, promote what we are up to. And again, we are in advance this week of a couple of fight cards that we're going to talk about. But this one, a little bit more of a recap podcast from last weekend. So we'll go ahead and start talking about it here and what went down at the finale of Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Boxing Fight Camp Series, the main event between Dillian Whyte, Alexander Povetkin. It is the left uppercut that has been talked about for like 3 days and counting, guys. And we're going to take another look at it here as Povetkin, for those of us on video, we're watching, dips and boom, just eradicates Dillian Whyte, English heavyweight, supposed phantom, whatever it's worth, WBC #1 contender. Good night. Tip your waitresses, drive home safely. Povetkin celebrating. All right, boys, let's talk about it. Marquis, you first. We're going to watch the knockout once more on video. This was a shocking turnaround. No question. One punch KO.
Absolutely. Considering the fact the round before this, TJ and Dan, as we all know, watching the fight, Povetkin was pretty much all but looking out of it. He was knocked down twice by Whyte in the fourth round. And then this fifth came around. He just lined him up, and then he teed off with this uppercut. And the one thing about this uppercut that makes it more important than anything else is easily the front runner now. Forget any knockout you've seen beforehand for front runner knockout of the year. This is the one now, barring anything happens the rest of this couple of months upcoming at this point, because my personal top three, it's that one. Joe George knocking that guy off his feet on that Showbox card in Mohegan Sun on Showtime about a couple of weeks ago. And before that one, there was a body shot by Ergashev on a Showbox new generation card back in February. That's my top three. But this one here, not only did that uppercut ruin the 2000 whatever day reign Andy Hearn's been saying for Dillian Whyte to end all of it, we also get to hear the greatness of everyone coming together, and that coming together was such a great feeling on Saturday night.
Yeah, on social media. That's what you're talking about. Everybody was just destroying Dillian Whyte, destroying Eddie Hearn, et cetera, et cetera. Dan Canobbio, give me some insight. Put it in perspective. It was a tremendous reversal, as Marquis was alluding to. Whyte had him down twice in the fourth round, but boxing, you never know with one punch, do you, senor?
Of course, especially with the heavyweight division. Heavyweight division is going through a renaissance right now, and it started off maybe 2 years ago. Every fight that Deontay Wilder became more and more popular. Heavyweight boxing became more and more mainstream. Throw in Tyson Fury, throw in Anthony Joshua. Dillian Whyte was a guy that a lot of people heard about and a lot of people knew about here in the States. And not just because of his fights. They knew about him because he talked a lot of trash. The guy was constantly on Twitter. He was calling out fighters. But in terms of the actual fight and the actual knockout, I mean, you take a look at the punch stats, what we do over at CompuBox. You know, Dillian Whyte was outlanding Povetkin better than 2-1. It's very rare that you see a fighter down that much on the punch count. And not saying the punch count indicates who's winning the fight, but it does give you a good idea of who is getting the best of the other. You know, it was a big discrepancy, and that punch came out of nowhere. It wasn't a lucky punch. I don't believe in those in boxing. It was just really good footwork from Povetkin, a guy that's 40 years old, a guy that's been around the block a few times, you know, stepping out and then just short, precise, right to the point, uppercut. And, you know, you add in the fact that Dillian Whyte was fighting in that WBC mandatory. He did not have to take this fight. He could have fought literally anyone. He could have just waited. He could have sat out and waited until we saw the third fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. That is extra intrigue as well. One punch power. It had it all. I mean, it had the big oh crap moment. It literally had it all. Heavyweight boxing is
all
awesome.
Right. You want the oh crap funny story from the Rives household. I was sharing with these guys before the podcast began. Any chance that I get to slide my twins in on the podcast, I'm going to do that. Like I'm going to promote right now. Here they are in their basketball outfits. I'll show the audience here. I promote my 12-year-old daughters. There they are in Laker colors when they were playing rec league basketball earlier this year. Okay, so we were in the pool on Saturday afternoon while the fight is going on, and I have the fight up on the screen, and I got the twins going, and I got one twin who's into boxing a little bit, and she's watching it, obviously, and so I had gone underwater in the fifth round. I figured that White's going to put him away. I had gone underwater for a couple of seconds. I come up out of the water, and the twin is screaming, he's down, he's knocked out. He's down, he's knocked out. I'm thinking Povetkin is down and knocked out. I look up, and speaking of the water, Whyte looks like a beached whale, and I have no idea that Povetkin has landed the nuke uppercut. So there is my story, and I'm sticking to it, that I missed the left uppercut live, not unlike Dillian Whyte, who missed the left uppercut live, boys. And
he was also
even a day later, maybe doesn't know what hit him.
Yeah, Dillian Whyte's also underwater as well. Yeah, you're right. You look like a beach whale, but that's the beauty of DAZN and with the app. I mean, they had a pretty rough year, right? All things considered. Yeah. You know, their customers aren't happy, the subscribers aren't happy. That's the beauty of DAZN, that you can pretty much watch it anywhere. You know, my niece I had my 7-year-old niece birthday party, but I was watching on my phone. That is the beauty of DAZN. I mean, there is
so wait a minute. So they're playing pin the tail on the donkey, 7-year-old party, some other game with you know, I don't know, My Little Pony, and Canobbio's over in the corner going, "Oh my God!"
You want to hear a funny story? Out of all the fight weekends, I had to go out to Vegas for a wedding, one of my best friends, and this was for the first fight between Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. And as they were coming out for their first dance, I was watching the fight on my phone on the dance floor, and it was dead silent in the wedding hall. And that's when Ruiz knocked out Joshua. And I yelled, I screamed out. I totally forgot where I was at the moment. It was dead silent inside of the wedding hall for the first dance. And I went, "Oh my God!" And everyone jumped and looked at me, and I was like, "Beautiful wedding, beautiful wedding." And
just tremendous. I'm emotional.
Yeah, so emotional. But right, that's heavyweight boxing. That's heavyweight boxing for you.
Oh, that's the voice of Dan Canobbio. We're going to talk more about his Inside Boxing Live program that you see through social media and his web stuff coming up in a couple moments. Marquis Johns is also here, Weak Sauce Radio, also here from BigFightWeekend.com. We're kicking around some of the topics of this week and coming off of last weekend. All right, so the Top Rank show in the Vegas bubble saw a couple of interesting things. First of all, Marquis, let's talk about Clay Collard on the undercard, a guy that you got to interview recently, Cassius Clay Collard, as he wants to be known. Now, the Collard train kept on rolling. If you're not familiar with this guy, kind of up-and-coming undercard star. He's won 5 straight fights in 2020, 3 of them on undercards so far. Marquis, say a couple things about Clay Collard and his latest win. It was not much competition, in fairness. The guy was more of a punching bag, but what about Clay?
Absolutely. No, his recent bout on last Saturday on Top Rank, pretty much like half of that Top Rank card, guys, could probably start this Ramirez Postal card next Saturday because they all had quick work. Collard faced Maurice Williams, who was not pretty much anything of note significant-wise in the ring. And the bigger thing about it is that even Tim Bradley was noted about, he was complaining about Clay Collard being protected, which I thought was pretty funny on the broadcast on the undercard, when you got undercard guys being protected. But it's only funny because when I spoke to him last week before last on the week of Making of Champions with the Joe Louis Podcast Network stuff, he mentioned that he wanted to face big-name competition and he wanted to face someone as soon as possible. He mentioned and he hinted at the Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder 3 card to be on again, or the Teofimo Lopez Lomachenko card, which is upcoming. One of those two is coming up immediately. That's the second one, and that's where he wants to be on. More than likely, like half that card we saw last Saturday, who had 2 rounds of less work, he'll probably be on that card somewhere down the line.
Well, and again, the level of competition may not be great here, but the guy's delivering knockouts. He's created some buzz. That's the point, Dan.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, Clay Collard is probably the best story in boxing in 2020. Been a year where we haven't had a lot of positives come out of it, but he took advantage of the bubble. He took full advantage of it. He went in there. His first fight, he defeated another undefeated prospect. He took down a bunch of undefeated prospects, and he went from the challenger now to the A side in like 5 weeks. Like usually that takes years and years and years of hard work, but the guy has put in a lot of work. He was an MMA fighter. So you can bring in that crowd. The guy goes in there, he's fan-friendly, throws a ton of punches. He kind of does this thing where he runs at you while throwing 1-2s. It's like rock 'em, sock 'em type of style, but, it works. And you're right, Marquis. I wouldn't be shocked if he's on one of these big-time cards coming up. He can fight on the
I will also interject if I can throw in. Tim Bradley did have a good point, which is you've got to see the other guy, because the last 2 fights I've watched, and both of those guys were completely like overwhelmed, intimidated, gave nothing in return, didn't fire at him, nothing. So you got to see somebody throw some punches, trying to hit him, and how does he respond? How does he respond when he gets hit? That's what we're intrigued to see next, right, in general terms, whoever it is. Right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? Like, in a way, he is protected. I know it's a ridiculous thing to say about a guy like Clay Collard, who has 2 losses and was a reclamation project, but Top Rank wants to put him out there because he's a name. People will tune in to watch, but they also want to build him up for bigger fights. Like, the guy, he moves the needle. To be honest, he moves the needle. So, yeah, you knew that he got a few squash matches mixed in there in his last couple of fights. Yes, I want to see him get punched. I want to see him get, in there with tougher competition. But, they're moving him along now as if he is now like an A-side guy and he's getting moved up the right way. It's like a very bizarre career for Clay Collard. We're seeing like in overdrive.
All right, voice of Dan Canobbio, Marquis Johns with me as we continue along here on the Big Fight Weekend podcast. All right, we do continue to roll on here. Again, whether you found us on Apple Podcasts, the audio version, Spotify, Google Podcasts, subscribe away. Also, the Sports Gambling Podcast network of shows. Again, we thank those guys. We're on their feed as well, with more and more finding you, more and more of you finding the podcast. Subscribe away, 5-star rate and review the audio podcast, but find us on video. See what I look like. God help us. See what Marquise looks like. We've got Dan Canobbio hanging out here. Love Dan, and we'll get a quick plug in here while we're doing this to check out Dan on his show Thursday nights. Help me if I get any of this wrong. It is Inside Boxing Live. You got different fighters on. You recently had Teofimo Lopez on Inside Boxing Live. They can find it through your social media. Look for Inside Boxing Live. Find him at Dan Canobbio on Twitter. Where else should we be looking for this, Dan, that we're watching here on the video screen?
Yeah, every Thursday night the show airs on the Fubo Sports Network. They're doing great things over on the Fubo Sports. They're like a cord-cutting streaming service. You can also catch the show on Pluto TV, in addition to the normal ways over on iTunes. I also post the show on the CompuBox TV YouTube page. We do the show every single Thursday. Like you said, last week we had Teofimo Lopez on. He had a lot to say. This upcoming week, working on a few things. I might have a secret location to do the show from. Eddie Hearn. Hearn has his big, bad backyard. I might have to show off mine. I'm always trying to think of something different. I'm trying to think of something, move the needle a little bit. We're getting into the dog days of summer. We're getting, let's have some fun. That's what the show's about. Try to have fun. Try to have the best guests possible. And just have fun. Boxing is not that serious, guys. It's a fun sport.
Exactly.
And, try to do that every single week.
All right. So again, just real quick off the recap from the weekend, we didn't cover it. Joe Smith Jr. won the main event over Elidier Alvarez. That was a light heavyweight title eliminator. Quick comment from both of you. Marquis first. Joe Smith Jr. very much back in the light heavyweight picture. Is he not, off the win on the top rank main event there the other night?
Absolutely, and it's looking impressive now, considering that he looked like absolute rubbish against Dmitry Bivol about a year ago this time around, guys. And he's faced these two fights back-to-back now. He beat Jesse Hart earlier this year, and he pretty much that fight against Alvarez this last Saturday was one-way traffic at one point. They could have stopped it at any time. And now we just have to wait for Joe Smith to face the other end of that light title eliminator, which is having visa issues because they're stuck in in travel restrictions because of the COVID stuff. So we're waiting on that part of it. But no, he looks like the guy to beat for this WBO. And everyone's now looking ahead now, trying to figure out if a fight with him and Better Beef is going to be coming down the line.
All right, so good to know on all of those fronts. Quick comment, Dan, on Joe Smith Jr. You worked through CompuBox, the top-ranked main event. He was impressive with a knockout over Alvarez, and he's in line maybe for a title shot. Real quick.
I love Joe Smith. The dude's from Long Island, just like me. He works for Joe Smith Tree Service. The guy climbs up trees and removes trees. There was a hurricane and it hit the East Coast, hit Long Island really hard. He was out there cutting down trees 2 weeks before his fight. I mean, then he goes out there and he looks really good. The guy's got the power that you want from a light heavyweight. But his last fight, he kind of, showed that he can box as well. Like Marquis brought up the fight with Bivol. He looked terrible. Yes, he clipped him at the end of one of the rounds, and maybe if that was at the beginning of the round, he might have won. But he basically pretty much got outboxed. But, you're right. That better be a fight. If they can, Top Rank can drum that up and they can get that going, that could be interesting. Because Better Biv is awesome. He's really, really good. He probably will be the favorite against Joe Smith. But Better Biv has been down before. He's been knocked down a few times. Joe Smith has the power, and he's only going to keep getting better and better. He's going to put in the work. Interesting things happen in 175.
All right, I got about 5 minutes left here before we're going to have to get out of here on the Big Fight Weekend podcast. All right, so let's go through a couple of things that are going to be happening this upcoming weekend. One of those, actually, before we even get to the weekend, one of those, and this is the kind of the betting angle that we're going to take for our friends at Sports Gambling Podcast and from their sponsor that's also our sponsor, MyBookie. Let's talk a little bit about this battle that's going to be coming up in Australia. That is Wednesday morning, early Wednesday morning for us, Wednesday night in Australia. Jeff Horn, former welterweight champion, defeated Manny Pacquiao, won the WBO belt, defended it once, and then Terrence Crawford destroyed him for the WBO title. Jeff Horn, former world champ. Tim Tszyu, the son of former undisputed junior lightweight champion Costa Tszyu. Tim Tszyu, unbeaten but largely untested, guys. And looking at the odds and the gambling angle here on this, Tim Tszyu is still the favorite in this one in Australia. I want opinions from both of you. Dan Canobbio first. Do you like Jeff Horn as a little bit of an underdog in this one? It's a non-title fight, outdoor stadium in Australia. What about it real quick?
You got to put some respect on Jeff Horn's name. Put some respect on his name. I don't think, yes, he did not beat Manny Pacquiao, but technically he did. Guy's always in wars. He's very game. He's a veteran. It's a grudge match, too. These guys don't like each other. You can't look past Jeff Horn.
Marquis Johns. Tim Tszyu is the country favorite, if you will, but he's untested largely on the biggest stage. Is this going to be much of a test early morning Wednesday U.S. time?
Actually, it is. It's going to be a fun fight, guys. This may be pretty much getting the schedule that we have upcoming on in the States here this week. And this is the fight of the week, and it's on a Wednesday morning before we can all get breakfast. So it's going to be interesting on that. And I think this will be a tough test for Tszyu. I got to admit, you got to put respect on Jeff Horn's name, as Dan mentioned. But I do think Tszyu may just shake this one out, just as it's a skill factor. Again,
a non-title fight, and I believe in the junior middleweight range, like a catch weight. They're fighting at something like 150, 152, something like that, not the 154 limit. And again, you may be listening to the podcast later in the week, and you already know that this was a great fight, a one-sided fight, whatever, Horn and Tszyu from Australia. We don't know that right now at the time that we're taping. One more, couple of minutes left. Again, this is Jose Luis Ramirez, Victor Postol. Not once, but twice they have delayed this fight due to COVID-19 earlier this year. It's now going to happen coming up this weekend. Top-ranked show, again, Dan, to you. Ramirez, unified 140-pound champion. Postal has had a portion of the belt previously a couple of years ago. What do you make of this matchup coming on Saturday?
It's a good matchup. It's been delayed a few times. Third time's a charm. I really like Jose Ramirez in this one. The guy's coming into his own. He's in the prime of his career. Postal, a little shop-worn. 2 rough losses mixed in there. It's going to be a good test for Jose Ramirez, but Jose Ramirez is an outstanding 140-pound fighter. Throws punches and bunches, got a great chin. The dude is blue chip, in my opinion, and I think Postal will give him rounds, which I think a lot of fighters want right now, considering they've been out of the ring for so long. But I expect Jose Ramirez to cruise to maybe a unanimous decision, majority decision win.
Marquis, give me a 30-second answer. You agree with this? Ramirez going to win it, and there is some intrigue because there's some other fighters. Josh Taylor has the other 2 belts, the Scotsman. He's fighting in September, and that name, Regis Prograis, still surfaces around, the Louisiana-American fighter that lost to Taylor. He wants a shot either at Taylor or at Ramirez. Give me a quick thought on Ramirez Postal.
I think it's going to go, as the dad mentioned, I think it's going to be a wide point decision for Ramirez. This is just one of those fights, so it's going to be fun to watch, and it's something to keep people on the move until these guys face each other, Ramirez and Taylor, somewhere down the line.
All right, we'll find out about those. We got to get out of here for this edition of the Big Fight Weekend podcast. My thanks to Dan Canobbio, Inside Boxing Live on Thursday nights. Marquis Johns as well. Read him on bigfightweekend.com. However you found the show, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, subscribe, and find the YouTube page and subscribe as well. You can see us as well as hear us via the Big Fight Weekend YouTube page. For now, we are done here on the Big Fight Weekend podcast. Enjoy all the action coming this weekend. We'll be back soon on Big Fight Weekend. Bye.